Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I wonder how long it will take before the buzz of your voices is something I take for granted again. I think it's going to be a very, very long time. Not just the sight, but the sound of you is so wonderful. Welcome to our gathering again in this space. Welcome everyone who's tying into our service from home. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church in Providence, where we love beyond belief. This is the day we have been given. May we make the very most of it, starting now, together.
That are printed in your order of service.
This light burns also in our hearts, and it lights our path toward harmony, justice, and hope for all.
Our opening words today are drawn from the writing of Robert French Levens, Unitarian Universalist. Holy and beautiful, the custom which brings us together in the presence of the Most High, to face our ideals, to remember our loved ones in absence, to give thanks, to make confession, to offer forgiveness, to be enlightened and strengthened. Through this quiet hour breathes the worship of ages, the cathedral music of history. 3 unseen guests attend: faith, hope, and love. Let all our hearts prepare them place. And this is our time of greeting. So please take an opportunity to stand or turn around in your pew, wave at the folks near or all the way across the meeting house, and call out your greetings to everybody. It's so good to see everyone way over in the corners and one pew away. Feel free to introduce yourselves if you're close enough to do that. or just blow kisses to the furthest people away. And then let's stand as we have begun to do and wave at the camera. Can you guys show us the one over where Michael is waving? That's everybody at home who can see us, sending our love to you and knowing that you send it to us. It is good to be together.
I call a church's deacons, beloved leaders who watch over the well-being of our congregation, to stand where they are seated as a cloud of witnesses to the joining of our newest members.
I call upon the new members who are present to join us here at the front of the meeting house. Please bring your new member insert with you. Karina Rand Anderson, Temple Fawcett, Nathaniel Fuchs, Marjorie Powell, and Thomas Phoenix Robbins.
The life's blood of any congregation lies in new members. You new members recognize the value of the church community in your lives and unite with us in the rituals, ideals, and traditions that are vital to our existence. Drawn by your own yearnings and your experiences here, you have learned the history and ways of this faith and this church in particular. You have signed the ancient book of membership in this faith community that goes back 300 years.
Therefore, we welcome you into membership in the First Unitarian Church of Providence. We need your courage, your skill, and your dedication as you, being human, need our supporting community. May you find here both happiness and wisdom for daily living. We place our hands in yours and share our hopes and aspirations. We welcome
you among us to this community of faith, commitment, and caring. We honor the paths of faith that brought you here and look forward to the journey we will share with you in the coming years. We extend to you the right hand of fellowship.
And I'll take a moment to say that is traditionally what happens. Today we are doing the namaste of fellowship because of our COVID protections that are in place, and we'll be doing that at the end. But in the meantime, I ask you, new members, will you affirm your joining this congregation and commit to cherishing the freedom of this liberal faith in which you may work out your own beliefs in an atmosphere of trust and challenge? Will you accept the responsibilities of membership and participation as we commit to support you in loving community?
We will, and we do.
We also welcome and honor our members who have joined in the last 2 years, who were greeted in an online service during the time when our worship could not happen in this sacred space. I will read your names, and I invite you all who are present here in our meeting house or with us on the live stream to stand as your name is called so we can recognize and receive you also into this beloved community. Allison Akers, Peter Larman, Lee Rodman, Annie Bissett, Lynn Corbel, Maureen Moynihan, Rebecca Simmering, Eric Gould, Christopher Sancor, Alex Briney Roxwold, Colin Murray, Kim Noble, Randy Carbo, Robin Hall, Bradley Hall, Steve Klobin, Kathy Klobin, Karen Nicholson, Robert Nicholson, Kristen Harrell, Jennifer Maloney, Cheryl Lisi.
Let us all join together in the words of our covenant.
We, the members of the First Unitarian Church of Providence, with respect for the worth and dignity of each other, with wonder at the light we know by many names, and with gratitude for our deep connection to each other and to the larger web of existence, covenant to walk together in our search for truth, seeking the paths of wisdom, compassion, and
justice. Welcome all of you, newer members, New West members, to this beloved community. May you find a lasting spiritual home here among these good people. May you find the comfort and challenge, the inspiration and support to help you be the persons you would be, and from this spiritual home, may you be nurtured and challenged to truly bless the world. Now we have our namaste of fellowship welcoming. I'm doing it from way up here, but I'm doing it. Welcome everybody who's out in the pews. It's so great.
Here are this week's joys and sorrows. We begin with a joy, a candle of gratitude that our flags hang again in our sanctuary. Thanks to those who made that happen. Also, a candle of joy for Gail and Paul Brouet, who are imminently welcoming a son-in-law, a lovely guy, to their family of all girls. Mazel tov. A candle of remembrance. This is the 57th anniversary of the March on Selma, known to many as Bloody Sunday, in which many Unitarian Universalists marched and the Reverend James Reeb lost his life. A candle seeking prayers and good thoughts from Reverend Liz on behalf of her beloved niece Sienna, who is immunocompromised and has come down with COVID at college. She is being well cared for by her school. Hopefully, this won't become serious. Her spirits and hopes are high, but she is feeling pretty ill. A candle of prayer and hope and healing for Cindy as she navigates her recovery. A candle of healing for John Breaka, who is presently in a nursing home and now under hospice care. A candle of gratitude to Richard Buber and John Hickey for all that they did to prepare the Breaka home for John's eventual return there. A candle of sympathy for Lucille Riccatelli for the passing of her dear friend and fellow artist, Dominique. A candle of sympathy for Sina Pounder for the passing of her sister-in-law, Sandy. A candle of sympathy for the passing of longtime First U member Robert Speaker. His memorial service was just yesterday at Swan Point. Condolences may be sent to his wife, Mona Speaker. A candle of remembrance for Nora Cohen, who died on February 22nd. The village common of Rhode Island mourn her passing. Many of you sent candles for the situation happening in Ukraine. I know this is on many of your minds. Liz and I put together a prayerful response. So for today's meditation, Cindy is going to light this peace candle from our chalice flame, the sacred fire that burns for Unitarian Universalism everywhere. And then Cindy is going to demonstrate. You, Liz and I will offer a responsive reading, and you will be asked when it's time to say the words, "No one is outside the circle of love." Try that with me. No one is outside the circle of love. So you'll just pick up one of these sticks and take the flame and light a candle silently. You'll hear the music of This Is My Song playing, and at the finish of that, our choir will sing for us. Please do take your time. It's okay. We're here for as long as we need to be. All of our hearts join in care and solidarity and prayer for the people in Ukraine. Liz is going to begin our responsive reading.
It's on this insert in your order of service. We know that hurt moves through the world, perpetrated by action, inaction, and indifference. Our values call us to live in the reality of the heartbreak of our world, remembering that no one is outside the circle of love.
We who are Unitarian Universalists not only affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, we also affirm the inherent wholeness of every being despite apparent brokenness.
No one is outside the circle of love. We know that things break or break down, promises, friendship, sobriety, hope, communication. This breaking happens because our human hearts and our very institutions are frail and imperfect. We make mistakes. Life is messy. Outside the circle of love.
With compassion as our guide, we seek the well-being of all people. We seek to dismantle systems of oppression that undermine our collective humanity. We believe that we are here to guide one another toward love.
No one is outside the circle of love. No matter how fractured we are or once were, we can make whole people of ourselves. We are whole at our core because of the great, unnameable, sometimes inconceivable love in which we live.
No one is outside the circle of love. You may come forward anytime.
Despite what it says in your order of service, the reading for today will be Under Ideal Conditions by Al Zolinas. Say in the flattest part of North Dakota, on a starless, moonless night, no breath of wind, a man could light a candle and then walk away. Every now and then, he could turn and see the candle burning. 17 miles later, provided conditions remained ideal, he could still see the flame. Somewhere between the 17th and 18th mile, he would lose the light. If he were walking backwards, he would know the exact moment when he lost the flame. He could step forward and find it again, back and forth, dark to light, light to dark. What's the place where the light disappears, where the light reappears? Don't tell me about photons and eyeballs, reflection and refraction. Don't tell me about 186,000 miles per second and the theory of relativity. All I know is that place where the light appears and disappears. That's the place where we live.
After reading, reflecting, and writing earlier this week, I had about 6 pages of notes and material ready to go for today's sermon. And right about then is when I began to feel that sermon on letting go. It was meant to be letting go of insecurity and struggle, letting go of measuring self against others and always coming up short, choosing and learning how to practice self-acceptance on the road to peace. That was all becoming less and less relevant as we watched in anguish the extraordinary courage and determination of the Ukrainian people in facing the brutality and destruction of the Russian onslaught in Ukraine. And eventually an irony came clear to me. It was time to let go of my sermon on letting go. You know, it's just so true sometimes. It's not about what we say, but what we do. Even with a sermon. Sometimes, as I think Jesus said, it just is what it is. So I let go of my plans and pages and started over writing these words I am saying to you now. I thought of Naomi Shihab Nye, the American Palestinian poet of the Palestinian diaspora and boundless humanity, of war that does not end, of occupation, and lives tumbled by the waves of nationalism and paranoia and broken faith and revenge. I thought of her rueful poem, Postscript, that she wrote about being misquoted by a journalist, in the end saying, "I wish I had said nothing." Or if I had to say something, only a tiny, tiny thing, a well-shaped phrase, smoothed off at the edges like a child's wooden cow that nobody would get a splinter from. The world is huge and rough, and these days feel huge and rough also. And there are old wars and new wars and all that we heed and know and so much more we cannot attend and do not know. As she implies, it would be artful and untrue to say something toy-like and small, some polished phrases smoothed off at the edges for these jagged weeks and these splintered times. Wherein lies a second lesson in letting go, the imperative of holding on to what is not just relevant but real even when rough. There are other, larger lettings go as well. I don't know if lettings go is the proper plural form. I have no idea. But you know what? I'm going to let it go. As you can see, this can get a little intoxicating after a while. There is the letting go of anxiety as we seek to speak about this, of being censured or criticized by others because we use the wrong language about it all. This comes in response, and I've heard this from a couple of you, and I've felt it, to the recent spate of brief language policing posts on social media telling us that it's Kyiv and not Kiev, and Ukraine, not the Ukraine. That when we name these places we are learning about wrongly as we attempt to understand and respond to what's happening, even as we are trying to wrap our minds and anguish around all of this, we're actually perpetuating Russian imperialist pronunciation and perceptions, so never, never make those mistakes. You might prefer not to actually name those places at all rather than get called out by someone else from the get-go. Let that go. There is the letting go of confusion and frustration about these posts themselves. As a person who is myself ethnically 51% Russian, Ukrainian, Jewish, all of my relatives come from two villages, Zaslav and Stepanitz, which are a ways outside of the cities of Kiev and Lvov, and that is how my family has always pronounced those names. That's how my grandparents, who were born and grew to adulthood in that region, pronounced them. That's how I learned from them to say those names, along with other diaspora Jews that I've spoken to lately. This is not so simple as tomato, tomato, or even Adonai, Adonoi, the different ways American Jews pronounce that essential title of God. But there is surely more to unpack from these recent posts' responses, establishing these absolutes about the right and way, the so clear right and the so wrong way to talk about Kiev. And none of that is where our inner should be going now. So please let it go. And there is the letting go of complicated relationships with Ukraine and Kiev and Lvov. Because as some of you know, diaspora Jews fled that area for their lives. That region used to be designated the Pale of Settlement. That's not a name I had actually ever heard until this week when I was researching it, though I've heard about those places all my life. The Pale of Settlement, pale from a Latin word for the kind of stake that marks a boundary, the Pale of Settlement was an area across the western part of the Russian Empire and, Moldova. There's been a lot of shifting. Parts of Poland are all mixed up in this on and off. Where for hundreds of years, Jews were allowed, temporarily or permanently, it depended, to live. Though not to own land or attend schools or hold most professions, but we could live there. And beyond the Pale of Settlement, for hundreds of years, Jews were pretty much not allowed to live. In 1905, amidst the unrest of the beginning of the Russian Revolution, pogroms, which are ethnic cleansing attacks, spread like a pandemic across the Pale of Settlement. They targeted 64 cities and 626 villages. Homes were burned. Countless Jews were injured or maimed. Thousands were killed. My great-great-uncle, who was a village rebbe there at the time, was crucified. That is why so many Jews now in the U.S. and elsewhere have roots in that region, because many left following 1905, including my grandparents and their families. The 1905 pogroms were some of the first and worst, but by no means the last. And most Jews who survived the pogroms were killed in World War II as part of the German invasion of Russia, which of course came from the West. Just a few years later, Ukrainian Christians began to be horribly persecuted for their faith by Soviet Russia, sometimes in very similar ways. Many of them also came to the U.S., fleeing the suffering and oppression. All that history cannot be erased or forgotten. But now, with even just that brief overview of all this history, centuries upon centuries of persecution and suffering, we can begin to apprehend, and I really use that word advisedly, given the concern and focus and danger for one man every day. With even a small sense of all that history, we can begin to apprehend the transformation that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who is a Jew, represents. An achievement that our own nation is nowhere near. It's incredible and so important, so hopeful. The man rallying Ukraine with all its history and heartbreak, and rallying the world from the fighting down in the streets and over the airways with such courage and resolution in a time of rising anti-Semitism across the world, is a Jew. And yes, serious racism and anti-Semitism still exist in Ukraine, as they do everywhere, as they do here. And as always, when things are at their worst, it brings out the worst and also the best in people. Ukraine as a nation is rallying to its president. It is a country filled with marvelous, precious people living in a nightmare this very instant. So there is some historic letting go to do here. Not forgetting, but letting go. opening up, allowing this also to be part of what we work for when we strive to support Ukraine, that in so many ways the present might possibly, finally, defeat a past. Which brings us to working in the present to secure the future. And that may feel more like digging in than letting go. But here too there is still letting go. Most of all, there is the letting go of the paralyzing quality of fear for everyone in Ukraine that can push us to either endless, fruitless doom scrolling, or conversely, push us away from engaging what's happening at all, because it's so frightening and getting worse, on top of everything else in the last few years. Now we see grandmothers learning to fire Kalashnikovs, the young men full of promise taking trains back from other parts of Europe towards a scrambling and untrained defense of their country, the families fleeing, not knowing if they will have homes or friends to return to, the parents mourning children lost in the bombings, the nuclear power plant fire, the shelling of civilian evacuation routes, even the pets that Ukrainians are taking with them and the pets they cannot take abandoned on city streets. Yes, it is awful to see and awful to follow. And any meaningful answer we can make will not be from doom scrolling, nor from shielding our eyes and minds. Let go of the fear in order to make room for the creative, life-saving possibilities. Let go of the worst to channel your best. The legislators to write, the resources to sponsor, the Ukrainian Airbnb to book that you will never use, or maybe one day you will, the medical care to ensure, and our Ukrainian beloved friends and families here in the US, here in Rhode Island, directly affected, who need our loving care. Let go of the rest to hold on to the difference we can make. It will not be perfect. It need not be perfect to be right, the same as all our efforts, the same as this sermon. Remember our faith. This time, too, is what it is for. And it calls to us right now to live it as fully as we possibly can. Live into our faith and all that it gives it. Live out our faith and all that it asks of us. Because in doing it, letting it in, living it out, like breathing the breath of life, we find strength. Letting it in, breathing it out, we find strength together in our shared and more supple capacities and the application of our congregational covenant. And we find strength alone when we are weighing our living, facing our own souls with reckoning to do. So please remember to let go. Let go also in another way And I don't ask this lightly. I have people that I ask to let go in this way, and they can't, because after the last few years, they're so stressed and exhausted, so overwhelmed by all they feel they have to do, all they see there as their charge. I am seriously afraid they're going to have a heart attack. But they cannot let go to save their lives. So I am not saying this lightly, but even now, especially now, remember to let it all go. Let go of all the oughts and the urgencies, even the imperatives and commitments. Let go even of all the lettings go I have just run through in this sermon. Let there be time in your days to let go of everything but some small, simple act that lets you be. Is it a privilege to do that? Yes, it is. It is a privilege to be able to do that. Here in this peaceable region, in this country, riven but not war-torn, we have the privilege of choosing to be. Some of the ways we choose will not be possible today in parts of Ukraine, in parts of Syria, in parts of what used to be Palestine that are now Israeli settlements, in Uyghur lands suffering pogrom at the hands of China. Some of the ways some of us get to choose are not possible in other neighborhoods in this city. Some are not possible out in the country, or outdoors, or indoors, and some ways require a healthier body, or a younger one. Some ways require knowledge or tools or gifts that we do not all have. We all possess different privileges and possibilities because of skin and gender and health and talents that we didn't earn and do not deserve, along with the burdens and struggles which likewise. The only privilege we all, every one of us, shares is the privilege of being alive this day. So let go, because you are precious and you deserve grace. And you do. If you cannot let go, knowing that you are precious and you deserve grace, then one, come talk to me. Come talk to me. Especially these days, come talk to me, or Reverend Roger, because you deserve better. You are precious and you deserve grace. And two, if you cannot let go for you, then let go in order to renew yourself for the work of living these days. In all their burden and all their beauty, life is a circular gift. It's a spiritual Mobius strip with sides that are really one flowing into the other, which is the one. Life blesses us and challenges us, and we have to lean into its blessings and honor them and experience them in order to have the strength for the challenges. Sometimes the very least things will give us the most. And with them, we can do all that we should do. From the smallest things. American poet Nancy Paddock wrote, "Lie down with your belly on the ground, like an old dog in the sun. Smell the greenness of the clover leaf. Feel the damp earth beneath your clothes. Let an ant wander the uncharted territory of your skin. Lie down with your belly on the ground. Melt into the earth's contours like a harmless snake. Let your fists open into useless tendrils. Let your mind resolve itself in a tangle of grass. Lie down on your belly. Belly to the ground, flat out on ground level, prostrate yourself before the soil you will one day enter. Stop doing. Stop judging, fearing, trying. This is not dying, but the way to life. In a world of change and gravity, let go. Let your burdens drop. Let your grief charge bleed off into the ground. Lie down with your belly to the ground, and then rise up. Rise up with the earth still in you. Amen. This is the time for our offering. It supports the life and the work of this beloved community, all that we do, all that we try to do, all that we can do next, all that we can ever do is made possible because of your generosity. It is so good to be together. It is so good to see so many of us back home where we belong. If it's been a while since you gave in the offering, please maybe give some extra to make up for it. Or if you're giving for someone you love who can't be here yet, please give as generously as you can, and thank you for all that you give and all that you do and all that you are. First of all, please raise your hand if you have heard me say the words realm from the pulpit at any time in the last few months. Okay, so about half of us know what this is then. Realm is the new database communication system. It's a huge improvement over the extremely outdated and no longer supported system that we had for decades. And so it's our way of communicating with each other and connecting with each other and keeping track of what's happening. And we need you to make sure to put your information in and activate it in the database so that we can find each other and people can find you. We also need you to put a picture in. You can put the picture that was already in the directory in, you can affirm that, you can put a new updated one with your new, long hair, whatever you've got going on in the last couple of years. You can offer one masked so that we can all recognize each other that way. Regardless, we really need to get her done because we depend on it for being in touch with each other. And the staff, I'll just say, the staff can access everybody already. It's the people who can't access each other unless everybody activates this. So the Realm team, which is a group of lay people plus Jen Nardone and Walter Sotelo from our staff, Cheryl and Neil Bartholomew, Ann Boyd, Ted Martin. Can I ask you guys to stand so people can see you and see where you are and see who to talk to if they have questions? Is available to help, and they're available to assist you hands-on this week, next week, over in the parish house. In the office? In the office. Keep going, ask for it if you don't know where it is, and they can help you get her done, or you can just, answer the messages that have been sent to you on email and do it yourself. You don't have to do it this way, but you got to do it. So let's get it finished. And if you want your photo added to your profile, you can also, after this service, see Ann Boyd or Jen Nardone. Jen's waving from the aisle, and Ann is somewhere way over there on the side. And they can take your picture here. So, you could just go with that, which is super simple. They'll just put it in for you. Second, if you are, among other things, holding a lot of awareness and energy about the future of our planet, maybe you want to help ensure its survival, but you are not sure how, one thing you can do is join the First Unitarian Church's Green Team, which is a committee here at First U working to help each of us find ways to create a more sustainable way of life. Now is an excellent time to join. The team is examining what it's done, where it's come from, and exploring what it's going to do next. So that's a future that all of us can help determine. You could start by taking part today in the team's brainstorming session that's happening right after church in the first parlor in the parish house. And any Green Team members who are here are welcome to stand right now so people know who to look for or talk to. Anybody here in the meeting house? Okay, so you'll just have to meet. Oh, yes, jumping up and down over there. There's one of our members there, and some are maybe over there setting up already. Okay, hopefully you've read and know that the Morehouse College Glee Club is going to be offering a concert here in First U, in this space, this coming Wednesday at 7 p.m. This is most likely going to be a very popular concert with the larger community, and space in the meeting house is limited. So you might want to come early to be sure that you have a seat. I just met the director of the Glee Club today, and he was so lovely, and offered me the chance to offer an invocation for them. But this is part of the journey that our church has been on to really expand who we are and how we do things and our relationships and connections, and it's pretty wonderful to see some of the things that are coming from these commitments. The nominating committee of the church is looking for leaders, next generation leaders, to help support and guide the future and next steps in the direction of our church. So they need to have a roster full by June for our annual meeting and to start the next church year, which starts in June. And they have a couple of openings. If you are thinking about the church on that kind of level and you'd like to be part of big picture stuff, and you have time to offer, because you do get to do a lot of talking and thinking, but there is definitely a significant time commitment as well when we're doing that, especially these days when there's so much going on. Please talk to a member of the nominating committee, and members of the nominating committee, can you stand up so people can see who you are and where you are? There's one, And there's one of them is Neil up there in the choir. And anybody else here to talk to? Jim Barfoot is waving. Oh, I didn't see you. Sorry. Thank you. So 2 folks. You must vault up into the choir loft to speak to them, but that will test, the scope of your capacities. Lastly, we do have a special talking circle organized today after this service to talk about what's happening in Ukraine, expand our understandings of it, fold in information and understandings from our partner church folks because of our program with our partner church, which is in Romania, which is very, very close to where this all is unfolding, and they have direct information from our partner church for us. And an opportunity. A lot of people have been in touch with us being like, what are we doing? What are we doing? That's what the church needs to figure out. So if the church wants to do church-based responses and not just individual things, this is the chance to come together and say, what would you like to see happen? What would you like to make happen? What would you like to be part of? How shall this go forward? So lay leaders, participants, this is your moment. So there's going to be a conversation that will be facilitated and led by our wonderful president, Odile Matiauda, and our wonderful member, Tony Allen, over in the parish house in the parlors. Oh, and also the online Zoom coffee hour for everybody who's online is going to have the same conversation, and that will be led by Reverend Roger and Nicholas Forter, right? Okay. And of course, please read your first few times. There's so much information in there, and it's really important. There's so much going on right now. It really matters that you just check in and make sure you know everything that's happening, because it's a lot. Our benediction is taken from the writings of contemporary African-American poet Lucille Clifton and her work, Blessing the Boats. May the tide that is entering even now, the lip of our understanding, carry you out beyond the face of fear. May you kiss the wind and then turn from it, certain it will love your back. May you open your eyes to water, water waving forever. And may you, in your innocence, sail through this to that. Can we join in the words for our chalice extinguishing? They are also printed in the order of service, as always. We carry the flame of peace and love and hope until we meet again.